Today is Tuesday, and I am in my Father's house. And I have been looking, into with this technology we have today, and I can see that there are many writers. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to use the media that we have today, you will learn how to type. Now, whether you use, 8 fingers and 2 thumbs, or 2 thumbs, it's up to you. But if you're going to communicate, through visual communications, a lot of the time you're going to find out that you will be doing some writing. And I was looking at something here from Focus on the Kingdom, and it says, "Who cares?" Sometimes I really do wonder who cares. Sometimes you can, put a couple of extra words in there with the "who cares." But it starts off, I sometimes wonder if anyone cares about God. The Bible said that God cares about us. Well, you should understand that if God is giving you life and breath, and giving everyone else life and breath, that God cares. Yeah. I mean, to say that God doesn't care would be like you have never, heard. For God so loved the world that he gave. God has been giving and giving and giving, and he's still giving information and, instructions to people, even today. Anyway, I'm looking at this, and it says 1 Peter 5:7. I haven't looked at 1 Peter 5:7, but do we care about God, about the teaching of his, let's just say, apostles? What about the teachings of God's apostles? Before there were apostles, there were prophets. And Jesus was the first apostle. He was also a prophet. But there's a transition between the old and the new. In the old, there was no apostle, but there was prophets. Now God has added something to something. And the apostle has been added. And the first apostle was Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth was not the last apostle. And it goes on to about the teachings of his inspired prophets and his last word to the world through the Lord Jesus Messiah. It looks like the man would know that the last word to the world did not come through the Lord Jesus, the Messiah. No, it didn't. Because the Lord Jesus told his disciples where to go and wait. And as soon as they had waited until what the Father promised had come, it was on that day that God made some things known. And yes, you can read about it when it happened in Acts. But that wasn't the last time that God put his spirit into somebody and they spoke. I mean, if the prophets spoke for God and the apostles spoke for God, then it's, you can pretty much understand that there are still some apostles and prophets. Now, whether they're true or false is, another whole different ball game. But folks, there are apostles and prophets today. And I just don't know what to think about somebody that says, it was his last word to the world. Folks, God is not through talking to the world yet. And man can live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. What you need to do, and I need to do, and everyone needs to do, is understand that when they hear God's voice, it's time to act. Jesus did teach that. It's not the hearer of the word that's going to be justified, but the doer. And to say that God has only given us a book, that's the most, I'm going to say, absurd. Yep, let me just say it that way. That is as absurd as it can get, to say that God has given us a book. Folks, I do care about what Jesus taught and what he said. I really do. But to think that God cannot speak today without a book is absolute absurdity to me. It is absolute absurdity. Because it's just absurd to me. I mean, to think that God can no longer speak to people and use people, to deliver a message, and they expect me to, take their advice. I'm not saying don't take people's advice. I'm just saying be careful whose advice you take. Understand that there are deceivers today. Many deceivers. And every one of them will have a book. Some of them will have 3 books. Somebody may have 10. Folks, I don't care how many books you've got. My library is empty. That means I don't have a library full of books. But I do know for sure that there are apostles and prophets today. And when the Lord Jesus appears and he is settled back on this earth, I'm sure we'll know who the real ones are and who the not real ones are. Until then, you can do whatever you do. But it's like the man said, if you're not, in the box, you're probably still breathing. And if you're breathing, you could be talking. And if you're talking, that means you're probably hearing. Yeah. Anyway, folks, it's a good day. The day of the Lord will come. The Lord Jesus Christ will appear. And nobody's going to fly away and be gone for any period of time.